And we got Grandma and Soto, Becky, Mommy, Danny hiding behind Casey, and Casey, and Uncle Pat and Patrick. Welcome everybody. Before we get started, I'd like to tell you a short story. This is Logan. He's a smart and funny 10-year-old little boy. His mom died giving birth to him. He lives only with his father. Logan likes video games, telling jokes, and playing in the park. He doesn't stand out in the crowd. There's nothing to physically single him out. Comparing these two pictures, Logan looks like any other little boy. Unfortunately, Logan has a secret. Since age 3, Logan has been sexually abused by his father. When Logan turned 6, he started to resist, and his father started hitting him. Though he never left a bruise, Logan was always beaten into submission. Logan never told anyone his secret. Not even his best friend knew. 3 weeks after Logan turned 10, his father went too far when he beat and raped him. Logan didn't live through it. Logan's secret finally came out and his father went to jail. However, now it's too late for Logan. According to Cardinal Mikulski Services, child abuse is an American epidemic. And before today is over, 4 children will die because their bodies cannot bear any more abuse. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to go over the different kinds of child abuse. I'm going to tell you some statistics on child abuse, and I'm going to tell you how you can prevent child abuse. First, I'd like to get started with statistics. The word statistics sounds a little intimidating, but in reality, it's just a fancy word for numbers. Here are a few numbers for your consideration. 10, 1,460, 6, 564,500, 5, 149,000, 83,500, 64,000, 3 million, and finally 2,000. These are obviously not winning lottery numbers. Every 10 seconds, a report of child abuse is made. 1,460 children die from abuse or neglect in 2005. Every 6 hours, a child in the U.S. dies due to abuse or neglect. 564,500 is the number of children who suffered from neglect in 2005. 5 children die every day from abuse or neglect. 3 out of 4 are under the age of 4. 149,000 were physically abused in 2005. Most children who were, 83,500 children were sexually abused. Most children who are sexually abused are abused by a family member or a close friend. 2 out of every 10 girls and 1 out of every 10 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 13. 64,000 children were emotionally abused in 2005. 3 million cases of child abuse or neglect were reported last year alone. And finally, 2,000 children died as a result of that abuse. Now that we've run the numbers, let me tell you about the different kinds. First, I'd like to talk to you about neglect. There are 3 different types of neglect that I'm going to go over with you today. But first, I want to define neglect for you. Neglect is the failure of a parent or guardian to provide the necessary needs of a child. And the very first type of neglect is physical neglect. As everyone remembers, Home Alone. Physical neglect is abandonment of a child. Abandonment is leaving your child without the intent to re-establish your parental rights. And another type is inadequate supervision. It's not unlike it's not unlike abandonment. However, in this case, the parent does eventually come back. Another type of neglect is educational neglect. Educational neglect is something as little as truancy, allowing your child to never go to school, to failure to enroll your child in school, or ignoring any special educational needs your child may have. Another form of neglect is emotional neglect. Emotional neglect is inadequately nurturing or showing affection to your child, making them feel unloved, or letting your child drink or do drugs. And now that we've gone over neglect, I would like to talk to you about abuse. Neglect sounds bad enough. Abuse is even scarier. There are different types of abuse. But first we'd like to go over discipline versus abuse. How much is too much? Having no children of my own, I can't honestly give you an answer on this. But I'd like to tell you about the different types of abuse. There's physical abuse. The difference between physical abuse and physical neglect is the child is physically hurt in physical abuse. Physical abuse can be any type of punching, beating, kicking, biting, shaking, throwing, stabbing, choking, burning, hitting with a hand or an object. That is a very long list of things that just sound terrible when you think of what you're doing to your child. Another type of physical abuse is shaken baby syndrome. And I have a little scenario for this one. Your new parents, your child is crying inconsolably and you don't know what to do. So you shake him. And you shake him. And shake him. And finally he stops crying. The only problem is, now he'll never cry again. Another type of abuse is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any type of penetration or fondling of a child. Kiddie porn and inappropriate pictures are also considered sexual abuse. And the last kind of abuse I'm going to go over with you today is emotional abuse. There are many ways to emotionally abuse a child. Spurning is one of them. And this word is one little word that defines a whole lot of different words. Spurning is belittling, hostilely rejecting your child, ridiculing your child, and things of that nature. Another type of emotional abuse is terrorizing. Terrorizing your child is threatening to hurt them and placing your child in known danger. And the third type of emotional abuse is isolating. Isolating your child isn't as clear-cut as it sounds. It's confining them, placing unreasonable limits on their freedom of movement, and restricting their social interaction. Now that we've gone over the different types of abuse and neglect, I would like to tell you about ways you can prevent abuse and neglect. This is easy and hard all at the same time. It's as easy as being open with your child, and it's as hard as gaining the trust of a terrified child. Don't be afraid to talk to your children about abuse or neglect. The more you talk to them about it, the more they'll be able to be open about it with other people. Your children may notice their friends being abused, but don't know to say anything. Or your child themselves may be abused. And again, they won't know to say anything. They don't know who they can talk to. By being open with your child and explaining to them what neglect is and who they can talk to about it, you're giving them a way to trust somebody. And also, don't be afraid to report any suspicions about abuse. If you're wrong, the person you accused will be cleared by a professional. If you are right, you could have saved the life of that child. Now, we've gone over the numbers, and you learned that 3 million children, 3 million cases of child abuse were reported last year alone, and 2,000 of those children died as a result of that abuse. You learned of the different types, and you learned that child abuse and neglect is not always black and white. There are also a lot of gray areas. And you've also learned how to prevent it. Remember, if you don't know the number for any local help, 911 works just as well. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Here are 10 pictures. How many words do they say? Oh well, there goes my 10 pictures. I'd like to thank you guys for sitting here and listening to me for the past few minutes, and I would like to take this time to ask you if you have any questions. I may not have the answer to your questions, but I would certainly like to try and answer your questions.
I think you were very thorough.
Oh, thank you.
You touched on every subject about it and answered any questions involved, really.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Go on. Wait, my hand's numb.
And as you can see, I did not scare my audience away.
Hey, we're back again.